Hello, welcome to Slow Night Sleepy Stories, a place that quietly tucks away the fatigue of your long day. The story I have for you tonight is the short story Bonanza, Nodaji, by Kim Yoo-jeong, one of Korea's most representative authors. Long, long ago, deep within a dark autumn mountain where even the starlight grew faint, there were two men wandering in search of a gold mine, dreaming of striking it rich, a bonanza. It is a tale of thick human desire and the chilling depths of nature, entwined in the cool night air. Though the night landscape is somewhat somber and heavy, as you follow the sound of the wind and the rustling leaves, you may soon find yourself drifting into deep contemplation and sleep. Now, lay down all your complex thoughts and close your eyes peacefully under your warm covers. Let us set off on a journey into the dark gold mine deep within the mountains. Here is the English translation of the story and your closing monologue. I have focused on preserving the tense, gritty atmosphere of Kim Yoo-jeong's original text, as well as the soothing, atmospheric tone of your outro. It was the pitch-black night of the new moon. The sky was densely studded with stars like sesame seeds. Thanks to them, the inside of the pine forest was faintly illuminated. Even within these rugged mountains, it was a gloomy remote corner. The slightest rustle was enough to make one's heart drop. Tigers, the lords of the mountain, all was still. Late autumn's chill was biting. Dew-laden fallen leaves fluttered down with a rustle, dampening their faces. Kongbo had lain curled up on the grass, using his knapsack as a makeshift pillow, and dozed off for a moment. When his eyes opened again, a violent shiver ran through him. His older brother figure seemed to be crouching opposite him in the dark. "Brother, shall we get started now?" "Not yet. We have to bide our time, even if it's a bit cold." In the darkness, only that voice could be heard, deep yet hushed. Along with the sound of tools being adjusted, there was a metallic clinking and rustling. Kongbo curled back up into a fetal position and closed his eyes. His clothes were damp from the night air. He had lost all feeling in his lower body. It just throbbed persistently. He abruptly sat up, yawned, and shivered violently. From somewhere, the sound of fading, crunching footsteps could be heard. Kongbo snapped to his senses, and his eyes darted around. "Is someone coming?" "It's probably the wind. How could they possibly know?" That nonchalant answer put his mind at ease. As long as his brother was beside him, there was no need to be frightened, even if a few guys showed up. He pulled the collar of his jacket tight and looked around. A massive, menacing rock jutted sharply upwards, as if piercing the glistening sky. On both its shoulders, smaller, jagged rocks clustered like dark clouds. Then, a gruesome head, whether from a dream or a tiger, he couldn't tell, seemed to suddenly appear in the air and look around. They were surrounded by such mountains on all sides. The wind rolled by incessantly, scattering dampness and fallen leaves. The spring water trickled endlessly. It felt as though the glowing eyes of a tiger might appear from the dark mountainside at any moment. He felt goosebumps rise, like he was trapped in a snare. Feeling utterly alienated and desolate, Kongbo shrugged his shoulders. There are way too many of these wretched mountain valleys. Every single one is a maze. With this thought, a terrifying memory flashed before his eyes. It was exactly this time last year. Just like today, he had gone out in the dead of night to secretly mine for gold. He had climbed a valley in the Hoyang area, known to be the most treacherous, an unfamiliar and intimidating place just like this one. Kongbo was with Deopiori and 3 other companions. A light drizzle that had started in the early evening showed no signs of stopping. Caught in sudden gusts of wind, the rain and fallen leaves battered their bodies again and again. Losing even the energy to open their mouths, they all just stood there, shivering uncontrollably. A massive boulder, looking as though it might topple over at any second, thrust its head forward, blocking their path repeatedly. After skirting it and rounding a pitch-black cliff, sweat poured down their backs. Furthermore, not knowing when a tiger might lunge at them kept their hearts pounding fiercely. But truthfully, they had managed a good haul. Somehow, the 5 of them had entered a 30-fathom deep cave, and in less than an hour they had hauled up 2 solid sacks of ore. The problem, however, lay in the division. How could they split this so no one felt cheated? Since Kongbo had exceptional experience in the gold mines, he readily took charge. Estimating the volume, he divided it evenly into 5 shares. But could there be a more ridiculous bastard? Is this how you divide things at a work site? Someone spat out these words from a dark corner. Trying to show off his temper, the guy spat out a wad of phlegm. Of course. Kongbo was so dumbfounded he just stared at him. This was their standard procedure. There was no reason to suddenly make a fuss about it now. Wait, is this all I get? Then who do you think hit the jackpot? Wait, who do you think dug this hole first? Who cares who did what? We found gold, we mined it, and we split it. Who cares? Would you have even come here without me, you bastard? Right at those words, the guy lost his temper and lunged at him. With ignorant hands, he grabbed Kongbo by the collar and shook him violently. Because Kongbo was small and scrawny, the guy clearly looked down on him. Being shaken breathless in the rain, Kongbo couldn't help but get angry. Without realizing it, he grabbed a piece of ore and smashed it into the guy's skull. At that, the guy let out a heavy breath like a bull and slammed Kongbo down onto a blood-stained rock. Pinning him down, he immediately picked up a piece of the cave wall and brutally battered Kongbo's ribs until they cracked. It was a miracle he didn't die, but even now, the injury occasionally flared up, leaving him incapacitated. Next, he took a severe blow to his left shoulder. His mind reeled. Deep in the treacherous mountains, it was clear the man intended to kill him. Just as the guy aimed for his chest for a third strike, Kongbo thought he was a dead man. It was a truly horrifying, hair-raising moment. But by the grace of heaven, the towering and rugged Deopiori flew in like a tiger. He grabbed the guy from behind by the waist with both hands and hurled him down the mountain slope. Whether the guy lived or died then, they never knew. Kongbo immediately climbed onto Deopiori's back, along with the gold ore, and came down to the village. The life Kongbo currently carried was the remnant of what Deopiori had saved that day. Calling Deopiori brother and treating him with utmost respect was not without reason. This mountain valley had the same exact gruesome face as that guy's valley. Looking around once more, he couldn't help but recall that chilling scene. Kongbo sat there mindlessly, puffing hard on his tobacco. Shall we warm up a bit and then slowly get to work? Deopiori, also feeling the cold, brushed off his shivering body and stood up. It seemed all the tools were ready to go. He rummaged around over there, then pulled a bottle of Makjali and a pig's leg from his knapsack and walked over. We should at least take the chill off it. Deopiori pulled the cork out with his teeth. Let's just drink it. When are we going to heat it up? Let's heat it. Well, that's fine too, but what if we get caught lighting a fire? Let's hide it between those rocks. The younger brother stood up and scraped together some fallen leaves. The older brother groped around, snapping off armfuls of dead pine branches. A gap like a folding screen had opened between the rocks. They went inside and lit a fire. Kuh, that tastes damn good. The older brother chugged a cup and grew flush. He sliced the pork with a knife and chewed loudly. Did you see the girl at the tavern earlier? Why do you ask? What did you think of her? She was quite a catch, really. He blinked his eyes in the firelight and smiled slyly. For 12 months of the year, his fate was to constantly roam. Here today, there tomorrow. There wasn't a gold mine in all of Joseon he hadn't poked around in. Whenever he thought, if only I could meet a woman like that and settle down a bit, a heavy sigh would naturally escape him. You know, having a woman around would make things a whole lot better. When he made this pathetic-sounding remark, I suppose, Kongbo stared right into his fac. They had traveled together all this time and he had never acted like this. Why was he suddenly thinking about women? Strange. Well, it wasn't as if Kongbo hadn't been having those thoughts constantly lately either, but maybe it was because it was late autumn. Whenever two bachelors sat facing each other, that was the only thing on their minds. Brother, do you want to get married? Where would I find a woman? Well, Kongbo brushed off the remark, but suddenly a thought crossed his mind. What if I gave him my sister? His sister was currently married to a farmer near Cheongju and had 2 children, but she had a very pretty face. If he offered her, his brother would be thrilled, and it would also serve as repayment for saving his life. Brother, do you want my sister? Your sister? She's very pretty. If you see her, you'll fall for her right away. Deopiori simply stared blankly, waiting for the next words. A satisfied smile bloomed on his dark red, fire-lit face. He had heard much praise about this sister in the past. Every time he heard it, he harbored different thoughts inside, but he could never bring himself to say them aloud. "What do you say?" "Well, would a settled woman do something like that?" he asked ambiguously, keeping his guard up. Then they awkwardly poured more drinks, and while offering one to his younger brother, he spilled half of it. "Oh, if she runs away, that's that. Who's gonna say anything?" Kongbo declared confidently. Deopiori was absolutely delighted. He crossed his arms and closed his eyes. "I'm finally gonna hold a woman too. That sister was probably very pretty. Plump, charming, she had to be that kind of woman." Though unnecessary, he abruptly stood up, hesitated, and then plopped back down. "When should we go?" "Hold on, let's finish this and leave tomorrow." If tonight's work went well, they could leave immediately tomorrow. Chungcheong province was just a 70 or 80 li walk after crossing the Gangwon border. If they walked all day tomorrow, they planned to drop by his sister's house the morning after, and then head to another gold mine. But when would they ever actually get their hands on this damn gold? It felt like a distant dream. "Damn it, when is our luck ever going to turn?" Kongbo lamented, tossing away the pig bone he'd been gnawing on. "Don't worry, something will work out. We're definitely hitting the jackpot today, you'll see." "I sure hope so. If we do, let's just settle down." "You said it. Honestly, is this any way to live?" They had comforted each other like this countless times. Whoever found the bonanza, they would split it evenly, buy a house, get a woman, drink, and live comfortably. But since they had never actually done it, it always ended up as empty talk. "It's about time for the roosters to crow. Shall we slowly head over?" Deopiori stood up briskly, hoisted his knapsack, and looked at Kongbo. Seeing him shivering by the fire, clearly suffering from another flare-up of his injury, made Deopiori feel quite pitiful. "Hey, I'll go do it myself and come back. You just stay here and warm up." "Nah, let's go." Kongbo sluggishly stood up and put on his knapsack. They stomped out the fire and left. There was a narrow path winding diagonally up the valley. To the left and right, pines, nut pines, chestnuts, and maples grew thick and dense. Beneath them, gravel and jagged boulders rolled about everywhere. They crawled and groped their way up through that pitch-black darkness. Their trousers grew damp from the dew on the grass. With every step, the wet fabric clung to their skin with a chilly slap, and the fierce wind blew down relentlessly. The fallen leaves swept down heavily with a whoosh, then the wind fiercely whipped back up. Kongbo trailed behind Deopiori, trembling violently. Is this madness or just hell? In this world, there was truly nothing worse than gold mining. What was gold anyway, that they had to do this? Furthermore, at the drop of a hat, they'd beat each other to death. Truly, he'd never seen a gentle gold miner. Every time his body ached, he was reminded of his grueling past, and goosebumps rose on his skin once more. Just then, a large fire flared briefly in the bushes on the opposite mountain. A tiger! Startled, he desperately grabbed onto Deopiori's waist. "What's that?" he asked, trembling. "What? That? Oh, it's gone now. Your eyes are playing tricks on you in the dark." Deopiori answered nonchalantly and kept climbing casually. That solid demeanor brought Kongbo some relief, but he still didn't feel at ease. He didn't know why he was so terrified today. His body felt heavy, and his mouth was bone-dry from a fever. Under normal circumstances, it wouldn't be this bad. "You don't look good. Get on my back!" When Deopiori offered his back, Kongbo silently clambered onto the knapsack. Looking down at Deopiori, who climbed steadily without a single complaint, he felt immensely envious of that sturdy physique. Only when they were both panting and sweating profusely, as if under the blazing midsummer sun, did Deopiori reach the ridge. He set Kongbo down, wiped his sweat, and let out a long breath. Not much further now. It should be just down below. They had stopped in this village just at lunchtime today. They had planned to pass right through, but the tavern owner's unexpected words had caught their attention. There was a gold mine over the mountain, a literal treasure trove where gold poured out. Recently, they had temporarily halted operations to secure a dynamite permit and resume fully soon. The owner mentioned they were keeping a 24-hour watch to prevent gold thieves. But Deopiori figured, who would stay awake in the middle of the night, and strode casually down. Kongbo poked him in the back. Still, human affairs were unpredictable. Looking left and right, they crept down stealthily. They descended for about 5 minutes. Indeed, a massive pit appeared right in front of them. A boulder the size of a haystack sat halfway up the mountain, and next to it, another one was split apart. Between them, wedged against a slanting stone wall, a hole had been dug. It was a little less than a fathom wide and about 3 fathoms long. When they struck a match, they saw it was over 4 fathoms deep. It was a haphazardly excavated hole. The walls were rough, and the waste rock hadn't been properly cleared out. They had probably done so to deter illegal miners. All the ladders were removed, leaving only the bare stone walls. They looked around in all directions once more. It was hard to see an inch ahead, but there was likely no one there. Relieved, they took a piece of pine knot from their knapsack and lit it. Diopori went first, lying face down on the rock wall and crawling backward down the shaft. Kongbo held the light and followed carefully, taking his time. When they were about a fathom from the bottom, Diopori's foot slipped with a shht, and he fell. He hit the ground with a heavy thud, taking a nasty tumble, but he brushed himself off and stood right up. They had to mine the gold quickly before dawn broke. "Brother, where should I dig?" "Well, just stay still." The younger brother held up the light and scanned the vein of ore. When it came to mining, he was a seasoned expert. With one look, he could tell the vein of copper was running right down the middle, while the gold veins were beginning to form along the edges. "Brother, you dig that corner over there." He directed his brother and then moved to this corner. But he couldn't bring himself to squeeze into that crevice. The timber supports, stacked a full fathom high, looked perilously close to collapsing. The bottom was shored up with smaller stones, but large, heavy boulders rested on top. If that collapsed, he'd be crushed to death without a sound. Kongbo pondered for a moment, but there was no other way. Frowning, he took his hammer and chisel from his knapsack. But whoever had dug this hole had made it so concave there wasn't even room for a single body. Reluctantly, he stretched his legs straight toward the timber supports, flattened himself into the groove, and began hammering. Because it was a hole bored into stone, the air felt incredibly hollow. The sound of the chisel striking echoed heavily against both walls. Clang! Clang! The noise rang fiercely in his ears. Nearly an hour passed. They had gained nothing but worthless rock. Another 5 minutes passed, 10 minutes passed, and right then, sweating profusely in that narrow gap, Kongbo finally chipped a piece of ore into his hand. It was a chunk of rock shaped exactly like a small wooden pillow. Still lying face down, he examined it closely by the light of the fire. The shiny surface had a dazzling luster. Could it be soft iron? He laid it on a rock and struck it with his hammer. It was a dense, sticky gold ore that didn't splinter easily. He picked it up again, brought it close to his face, and squinted. He stared at it intently for a long time. His heart pounded wildly, completely out of control. The gold embedded in this rock alone had to be worth at least 1,001. 1,001. "What's that? What is it?" Diopori rushed over frantically. "Bonanza." A breathless reply. A bonanza?" No sooner had the words left his mouth than Diopori snatched the rock from him and held it up to his eyes. Gold embedded thick enough to bend the rock. "We're finally changing our destiny!" He couldn't help but do a little jig in his excitement. "Come on out, let me at it." He practically lifted his younger brother out of the crevice and slid in himself. He too stretched his legs toward the timber supports and threw himself face down into the gap. Because he was so large, it was a tight fit, but surely he had more strength than Kongbo. He wedged his chisel into the narrow space and hammered away, panting heavily. Kongbo stood behind him, suddenly losing his enthusiasm. When it came to mining, he was the master, and his brother had always taken orders from him. What does this novice know, acting so clumsy? He won't even be able to chip off a proper piece. He quickly realized his brother's demeanor was abnormal. The moment he saw the gold, he changed completely. "Hand me that pickaxe." His brother yelled sharply without even turning his head. The younger brother remained silent, offering no reply. The way Diopori was looking down on him was utterly repulsive. "Hey man, hand me the pickaxe right now. Why are you just standing there blankly?" He glared up at him fiercely. Kongbo silently fetched the pickaxe from the other corner and handed it to him. Then he stood there vacantly again. The more recklessly his brother acted, the more it felt like a deliberate show of force. That arrogant bastard, flexing his muscles like that, it makes my blood boil, but I can't just let this slide. Got another piece. How's my strength? His brother boasted as he relentlessly brought the pickaxe down. He looked like a pig tearing into a trough. With ferocious power, he tore out 2 pieces of ore the size of a handspan. Now, without absolute desperation, no one in the world could dig out any more. Yet, under his powerful fists, the hard copper veins shattered and gave way. Watching his brother boast so fiercely, Kongbo could clearly see his intentions. He was definitely planning to keep this bonanza all to himself. He must be hating the fact that I'm here right now, Kongbo fumed internally. Look here, guys like you could come here 100 times and it wouldn't make a difference. When his brother boasted like this again, a chill ran down Kongbo's spine. Earlier, his brother's hands had saved his life, but now, in this very same mountain valley, those fists might end it. He quietly looked down at his brother's mass. I've fists and couldn't help but compare them to his own pitifully frail ones. He could do nothing but tremble with rage inside. Suddenly, Kongbo leaped back in terror. A sudden scream of "ah!" was followed by a thunderous crash. Somehow, the middle section of the stacked timber supports had given way. The brutal rocks crushed straight down onto Diopiori's calves, thighs, and hips. His flesh was undoubtedly pulverized. Pinned face down and unable to move, he groaned in agonizing pain. It was a miracle he wasn't dead. Right above him, horrifyingly large boulders had rolled down, only to be caught precariously on the smaller stones in the fire pit below, hanging by a thread. If those rocks fell, he wouldn't just lose his life, he'd be smashed to a pulp. "Hey, help me get out," his brother pleaded in a dying voice, his body paralyzed. And then, "Brother, I'm dying, please," he begged even more desperately. He could barely lift his head. It seemed he had lost all use of his hands. The younger brother stared up at the crumbling supports, then quickly stepped toward Diopiori's head. He swiftly grabbed the 3 pieces of gold ore lying at his feet, then quickly stepped back. Without even glancing at his brother's tear-streaked face, he scrambled frantically up the stone wall. "You bastard!" A thunderous, screaming roar echoed from below as he climbed over the edge, instantly followed by a terrifying, earth-shattering crack smash! It happened almost simultaneously, then a brief crumbling sound followed by silence. By then, the younger brother had already climbed more than 2 fathoms. When he reached the pit entrance, he popped his head out, looked around, and vanished like a shadow. Diopiori's form was nowhere to be seen. In the gloomy darkness, only large boulders lay scattered about. The embers of the fire at the edge flickered weakly, on the verge of dying out. And the harsh wind let out a moan, sweeping sand fiercely into the mouth of the pit. The story ends here. In the pitch-black darkness, beneath the collapsed pile of stones, the divergent fates of the 2 men, which ultimately met a tragic end, leave a truly bitter and deep lingering resonance. Was the gleaming bonanza they so desperately desired ultimately heavier than the warmth of human life? In the empty space where chilling desires swept through, only the sound of the cold wind remains. Fortunately, however, the place where you are right now is not a dark and freezing mountain, but your very own room, safe and warm. Let the harsh wind of the story drift far away now, and leave all the heavy fatigue of today right here. Tomorrow, a day brighter and more precious than gold, will be waiting for you. I hope peace rests at your bedside tonight as well. Sleep well, and sweet dreams.